Can't hear Marita.
Now, the end of the government shutdown couldn't come soon enough for people struggling due to reduced SNAP benefits, while the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services announced a plan to begin distributing partial benefits. It still left families without, adding tremendous feelings of loss. When we learned the federal government would be releasing SNAP benefits at a reduced amount, we reached out to the community on Facebook asking how this was affecting them. We received an overwhelming response, and our newsroom phones rang off the hook with people expressing dismay and concern. A family of 4 received $160 in benefits. One woman on disability, who's used to getting $120, received just $16. Others didn't receive any at all.
I have 6 children, and it has completely devastated me, and I'm not sure what we're going to do. My husband works, I work, and it's just not enough.
One Youngstown mother I spoke with lost over 90% of her benefits.
I work full-time. I'm in school full-time. I got a daughter. I usually get $190 in stamps every month to feed us, and today they loaded my card with $16.
During our interview, she was actually on her way to pick up shifts in hopes of bringing in more money tonight.
That forces me to have to do more side hustles like Amazon Flex, Instacart, DoorDash, just to make sure that we got food on the table.
Which she says is a strain because her daughter also needs her attention, as does household maintenance.
I just hope that whoever else is going through whatever I'm going through, I hope we all can just find help and get help or do something about this, because truly it's not fair, and I hate.
Now, we do want to remind you that there are options out there. You can check out your local food bank or your food pantry for assistance.
Well, good evening, everybody. If that's not a way to start off this conversation, I don't know what is. I'm Reverend Dr. Susan Smith. I'm the director of the Office of Clergy and Leadership Resource Development, and you have joined us for Critical Conversations. We are the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, and we do want people to be connected and strengthened, and we interrupt injustice through education, advocacy, and activism, and that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to be educating because that stuff that we just heard is going on all over the country, and people are swimming in all kinds of emotions. It's a very difficult time. When I listen to that stuff, it makes me almost come to tears. But anyway, we're not going to cry. We're going to talk tonight. We are doing work on helping people in general, but specifically African Americans, handle the trauma that we're all experiencing due to this political craziness. It's chaos, but it's craziness, and figuring out how to survive and thrive despite the efforts to steal our joy and our health and our faith. We are in a crisis. And our guest this evening is going to talk with us about how to get through it, what it is, what it looks like, what it feels like, because we want everybody to know that certain things you're feeling, and it's real and it's legitimate. We want to talk about that. Because we need to talk about it. We believe that we have to talk about what is wrong in order to address it. And that is our plan this evening. So if you're going through trauma because of how your life has been or is being affected by everything that's going on, we want you to put your questions in the Q&A section. And even though I've been kind of trifling and looking at those, I'm going to be better tonight, I promise you. But we want you to listen to our guest this evening, the Reverend Dr. Jamie Eaddy, who is a public theologian, a loss navigation specialist, a death doula, a death educator and chaplain, an author and poet. How about that? She has over 20 years of experience as a spiritual care practitioner and provides care for congregations, community, and fellow clergy. And I want you to know that because, if you need more conversation after this, you need to know who to call. And she's the person that you would call. She was licensed and ordained to the ministry by the Reverend H. Beecher Hicks Jr. and the Reverend Dr. Maurice Watson, respectively. She's the CEO of Thoughtful Transitions, LLC, and she provides holistic support to individuals and communities navigating their way through trauma, grief, and loss. Welcome, Dr. Eaddy. It's so glad to have you here tonight. I was looking through some stuff just to see what people are thinking and feeling. And I just want to just kind of lift this up for our listeners to consider as you begin to talk about what's going on, how we're going to handle it. The wife of a Department of Homeland Security worker in Ohio said that her bank rejected her request for a deferment on her mortgage. You know, people have gotten fired. So they, you know, if they haven't lost their homes, many of them are going to lose their homes. That's stress, that's trauma. Like nearly all federal employees who NBC News spoke with, she asked not to be identified for fear of retaliation by the administration, which has publicly fired federal workers that is deemed as being against its agenda. And, big surprise, most of these people, the majority of people who have been fired have been African-American women. She says, I was never afraid to speak my mind before. I never felt afraid to talk. Now people are afraid. An Arizona TSA worker said, explaining her concerns over speaking publicly about how the shutdown is impacting her. She will have to continue working without pay for a minute. So we're in a bad place. And I don't know how many of you are working paycheck to paycheck, or if you're not working paycheck to paycheck, if you have worked paycheck to paycheck. I don't know how many of you have had to run around your house in the morning looking for some change to get on the bus, or to, give your kids money for their lunches or something. But this is like that multiplied 1,000 times. This is 1,000 times, and it's intentional. Project 2025 is, they have a plan to dismantle the government. And part of the dismantling includes making people, taking people off the payrolls. If they can't eat, it's a cycle. It's a cycle. So you can't eat, then you're going to resort, and you don't have a job. Then you're going to resort to crime because you got to eat. And not only you, but your kids, and it's your medicine, and it's your house. It is a mess, but it's an intentional mess. It's an intentional mess. And so we as Black people have a history of being resilient, I would think, that everybody would agree with, because I think we have lived with fascism ever since we've been here. We know fascism. A lot of people are surprised, but I don't think we're surprised. I'm not surprised. And we have understood, we have come up with ways to deal with it, but not everybody knows that. And so Dr. Eaddy is going to talk with us about, what's going on and what we're feeling. And she's going to talk, and I told her I'm going to kind of let her move the way her spirit is moving her to move. And then when she says something, I say, oh, I don't get that, I'm going to interrupt her and say, help us. So welcome, Dr. Eaddy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. As always, I don't enjoy the reason why we have to have these conversations, but I welcome being part of the community that is engaging in these conversations so that we can do what we need to do together to be as well as we can be under the circumstances. As you were talking, Doc, I wrote down just a couple of things. One, that you named this as intentional. And there was a video, and I don't know who it was. I'm going to look it up, and I'll come back to the video and just put it in Facebook or something. But it was a press conference, and the comment was, "We've eliminated taxes for the right people," something like that, and we're killing all the right people. Oof. Oof. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? So just to think about the intentionality of what is happening in our society today, they want to kill people, right? Make no mistake about it. And for many of us, Black, Brown, Indigenous, those who are struggling financially because of just not receiving equitable wages, already having to work 2 jobs, right? 3 jobs, already dealing with racism and sexism and all of the isms and the phobias that we have to navigate. And then this on top of that. And so first thing I just want to say for all of us is that all of that stuff you're feeling, I don't want you to think like something's wrong with you because you're feeling a certain way. You might be feeling depressed. You might be feeling extremely angry. You might be feeling really sad, like this sort of sadness or despair or melancholy that just won't leave. I want to name that as normal under these circumstances, right? Anxious. I see that. In fact, those of you who want to sort of just like, let's just name, right?
Yeah.
The feelings that we're bringing into this space. I see anxious being named in this space, right? We need to name that as normal with what we're navigating in this world. And here's why one of the reasons why it's important to name this as normal. Because in our faith-based spaces, so this churches, mosques, synagogues, and whatever other space you gather for sort of spiritual community, spiritual grounding, we need to be able to speak to that in those spaces, right? Not to pretend that the people in front of us are not feeling all of these things, right? So even thinking about those of you who are in ministry, perhaps you preach or teach or you proclaim in some kind of way during the week with a group of people. What does it look like for us to acknowledge that all of us are navigating this trauma, right? Now, here's the key. Each of us navigates trauma in our own way, right? We all navigate trauma in our own way. That's why the emotions, the feelings that you all are naming in the chat, some of them are not, you're like, oh, I didn't name that one. I don't know if I'm really feeling this one. I don't know if I'm really feeling anxious as much as I'm feeling angry, right? So each of us is feeling something different. Each of us is going to navigate that trauma in ways that make sense to us. Let me just quickly define, sort of talk about what trauma is, right? So trauma is, I'm going to do it this way. Some people talk about the event, right? So trauma, the event, an event, but trauma is more than the event. It is what happens inside of us as a result of the event. And here's the key. Even if we do have a support system and healthy coping, it does not mean that the event is not traumatic for us, right? So even with the best of therapy and community, it can still land as trauma for us. One more thing about trauma. When you can think about like this, there's acute trauma, something that happens to us one time. I live in the city of Philadelphia. I work for an organization that supports people through homicide, right? So, but also other types of violence. So say someone robs me. That's hopefully never, but that's a one-time thing, right? They robbed me today, one event, an acute event. Say a car accident, an acute event, a one-time event, right? So some of us are navigating these one-time events. More of us are navigating these chronic events, which are multiple things happening in our lives, right? So it is poverty and racism. It is intimate partner violence and economic violence, which is happening as a result of the system that we're living in, right? So most of us are navigating chronic, more than one thing, and complex over a period of time trauma. On top of that, intergenerational or historical trauma, right? This idea that our ancestors, those who came before us, experienced trauma. And we know science has caught up to this now, right? These are things that our great-grandparents, your grandmama and them knew. They knew that the stuff happened to great-grandmama Alice. They knew that was impacting them and it was going to impact future generations. Science has caught up, and they talk about epigenetics, how the events that our folks had to go through back here also impact us today, right? Dr. Susan, I'm writing right now. I'm so excited to be writing. And one of the chapters is called Long Grief, Short Telomeres. And telomeres is sort of this DNA conversation that looks at how our bodies change over time as a result of the trauma that we're experiencing. This is why Arlene Geronimus, back in the, I want to say early 90s, started talking about weathering, right? And how she was looking at Black women in particular, but other people have now looked at other communities who are, your body is aging faster than your chronological age because of the current administration and other things that we're going through. So it is impacting us. That trauma is aging us. that trauma keeps us in a state of fight or flight, right? Your body was never meant to live in fight or flight permanently. You were meant to be able to go to fight or flight when danger is here. But ideally, you return back to a place of safety where your nervous system comes back into alignment, right? They call it the ventral vagal state. When your nervous system, somebody said they were anxious, right? You're supposed to be able to come back to a calm sense of safety. We're not there because we're living in fight, flight. Yes,
Let
ma'am.
me ask you something, because I think my understanding or my sense sometimes is that people think trauma is these major things, but trauma, a lot of it, most of it, can I say that most of it starts right in your house? How many people had something happen to them when they were 5 years old? It might not have been anything that, some traumas are bad. There's sexual stuff and all that kind of stuff, but something, it might have been that your mama said something to you that hit that part in your spirit that wasn't able to take it. And you bury that stuff and then you carry it. So then what happens is those accumulated incidences of small trauma impact, you're already being impacted. And then something like this comes and you don't have any resources because you never dealt with the small stuff. You think, oh, it's normal. It's not normal. And it's not normal. And then in church, we don't talk about trauma because, we just love Jesus and Jesus will fix it. But, Jesus will fix it. But sometimes we have to talk about it and we don't. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So I love the way you talked about trauma just now. A real easy way to think about trauma is something happens that overwhelms your capacity for coping. Right. So mama said something that crushed your sense of identity, abuse, all of these, something occurred that overwhelms your capacity for coping, right? And that is sort of easy kind of definition, if you will, for trauma. So you name that. And then in our faith spaces, I always talk about how in some of our faith spaces, and I think it's because we want to help and we want to move people from a place of despair or sadness or anger, not realizing that sort of prematurely or having people pretend that all is well is not helpful, right? And so being able to be in those spaces and not practice, say, spiritual bypassing. And that's when we sort of, y'all know that toxic positivity that, oh, well, God will work everything out for your good. Like when something happens, I'm naming the very real pain that I'm living through, and you slap a scripture on it that really disregards my experience in the moment. And sometimes, like, that's what we do in our churches. Sometimes, I'm not, those of you who are pastors on here, I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm speaking generally, right? Sometimes in our rush to move people out of places that make us feel uncomfortable. Because really, I'm uncomfortable with your anger or your sadness. That's a result of the trauma. I don't feel comfortable with it. So let me move you to a place where there's joy, right? You don't talk about the trauma, you don't talk about the pain. And so often I find that some of our spaces of faith, we want to move people because we're not comfortable as leaders ourselves, sort of navigating the messiness, right? We talk about powers and principalities. We're uncomfortable navigating the heaviness and the darkness that people are literally, in some cases, sinking in. And I don't feel comfortable, or I don't feel equipped.
Yeah.
And I've never been told that I don't have to do it myself, that I can reach out to therapists. I can develop partnerships with therapists, trauma therapists, grief counselors, all of these folks that may be outside of the spaces of faith, right? We don't talk about what it looks like to build a holistic partnership so that our people can be well. Because yes, trauma occurs in the home, in the school, in the church. This event that overwhelms our capacity for coping. Many of us did not have the support and language and ritual as children to process through it in healthy ways. And we are in spaces with people who are not equipped because they've been told Jesus will fix it, or all you need is prayer. I say we need prayer and prescriptions, right? We need the theology and the therapy in order to be well. And so that's really as I heard your sort of question and thinking and teasing that out, right? It is yes, trauma can be, it can be the fact that your mother crushed your identity as a child and you did not have the capacity, the skill set to navigate that well. And that wound stays there and often shapes how we move through the world. So that wound, plus the wounds I'm carrying, I'm navigating the world with these wounds. It shapes how I see things. It shapes my expectation for joy and safety. So in some cases, what I'm feeling is normal, but this stuff I hear that we dealing with ain't normal, right? But for some of us, it just becomes the normal thing. No. This stuff is evil. This is not normal. This is not what we ought to be living in. And what I'm feeling in the midst of this is normal, right? So realizing that what is happening is absolutely not of spirit, is not of God, is not just. And so anytime I come into contact with that, there's going to be sort of this disharmony, right? There's going to be something that throws me off because it's not meant for us to move through the world constantly wounded.
So when we don't talk, I see Robert Simmons said something about, people, therapy and talking is not the recommended way to deal with trauma. So if we don't talk about it, what does it do to us first physically and then spiritually?
Yeah. So talking about the body. So one thing is we know that our nervous system, right? So that nervous system, how that fight flight feeling, that the way your body is responding. So many of us are living in that space where we are, somebody mentioned anxious, alert, reactive, ready to protect or flee, that fight flight, that sympathetic nerve. Our nervous system is in the sympathetic state. So many of us are living, and it's like really living on the edge, right? Where you're expecting pain or your body is responding to that, right? So that's one thing that happens. Another thing that happens in our body is we start to feel fatigue and exhaustion, having to navigate that. It's helpful for us to remember that you are a whole being. So when you have emotions, when you're navigating these emotions, that also impacts your physical body, right? So it is not that my emotions are in this bag, but then my body itself, my flesh is in this bag. No, when you are navigating these intense emotions, when your body is constantly fighting to do what it needs to do, you feel some sense of exhaustion, some sense of fatigue. We know that the body begins to experience things like inflammation, right? So this is that causes the joint pain and the muscle pain. So now you're trying to figure out why your shoulder's hurting. Yeah, I know we might be in menopause, but that's not all it is, right? I know that so the way our bodies feel, so literally feeling pain in our bodies, it's not just that the trauma is in your mind, but then let's think about our minds, right? That we know that grief trauma can rewire our neural pathways, right? So how we're able to focus. And I always want to talk about this with children because we have children in schools and teachers are labeling them as incapable of learning or they need special attention. And I am saying that the one of the challenges is that those children are also navigating trauma, and trauma can shift your focus. So I may not be able to focus well. So no, I can't understand this multiplication table because I can't focus because of the trauma, right? It impacts your decision making, right? Your mood, right? So we know this. We know what trauma does to the brain, to the body, to the emotion, to the spirit. So what happens to people who are constantly worn down? What happens?
And we are worn down. And I was thinking as you were talking, Dr. Eaddy, the other side, they're traumatized too. That's why they're acting so crazy. I think that and I'm saying that because trauma is beating trauma. the trauma of the oppressors that give them, whatever they have in there we're meeting it with the trauma of the oppressed. And it's like a no-win thing. And that inflammation you're talking about, I remember somebody told me he had a toothache, and I said, you better go on over to the dentist, because that inflammation in your mouth will cause you to have a heart attack. It can cause you to have a heart attack, and we don't put all that stuff together. And so just like your muscles tense up, your little gums tense up, whatever, the digestive process stops. And so if we don't deal with it and talk about it and shake it out, I mean, when y'all have those, retreats and you do that breathing, and I used to think, I ain't gonna do that breathing, but that breathing helps.
Yeah.
But it does, because your body needs it. You need room to deal with the pain, and room to deal not only with the pain of today, but the pain you've been carrying since you were 15 years old. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. And so I want to talk about the body and movement in ways, right? I want to go there for a second, because I too was like, and this was a while ago, but like breathing, telling Black folks to take a deep breath. Like, really, like, I got things to do, right? But realizing there are some things I've learned over the last decade, but certainly the last 5 years, very specifically, right? And that is that even though things are happening with me and around me, right, there are still some things that I can do with me that lessen. I don't know that it eliminates, but lessens the inflammation I had in my body, right? Things that I've learned to do. So you talk about breathing. Most of us move through the world holding our breath.
Yep.
Right? We're just not breathing. We're not taking in deep breaths. We're holding our breath. And so what does it mean, Black folk and everybody else who's on here, but listen, right? What does it mean to be very intentional about that thing that you own? I own my breath. And I had to start realizing that deep breath was helping me live just a little bit better, right? So what does it mean to take the deep breath? Matter of fact, if y'all are on here, I'm gonna encourage you as we're talking tonight to take in. If you want to do a count, sometimes a 4 count can be helpful. Sort of breathing in on a 4 count and exhaling on a 4 count. Like, if you do that while we're here together, because one thing, right? Shoulders get really tense. So your shoulders are up here. You're having headaches. Our bodies are feeling the pain. You talked about heart. So cardiorespiratory issues around trauma, not just our own individual direct experience of trauma, but again, trauma that's been handed down through generations. This is why they talk about Black men having such cardiorespiratory issues. It's not this particular issue that you're dealing with. It is also something that's in your DNA, right? So what does it mean for us to begin to think about, how can I tend to, and y'all, let me be real clear. I'm trying to watch my language. Like, they trying to kill us, right? So I'm not making light of it. I'm not suggesting that I take a deep breath and all of that's gone. So I really need to say that, right? And
can you share that quote you shared when we were not on yet? Can you share that quote that you heard, that you read?
Oh, the one about them trying to kill us?
Yeah.
And so somebody sent me the full quote, and I appreciate you. So I got it. I got the full quote. Full quote from Terry Ann Smith. I don't know if that's person. I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people, and we're cutting your taxes. And this is Senator Lindsey Graham while speaking at the Republican Jewish Coalition Annual Leadership Summit. They are trying to kill us. And if you know Dr. Pamela Lightsey, she says it a little differently. I can't say it like that in this space, but y'all understand what Dr. Lightsey said. These people are trying to kill us. And so how do I move through the world knowing that these people are trying to kill us? They are not going to look for ways to support us. They are not going to look for ways to make the journey a little bit lighter. They are not going to look for ways to lessen your load. They are not going to look for ways to provide you economic freedom. That is not what they're doing. Their intention is to kill all the right people. And who are the right people?
You see, and you answer your own question when if anybody asks that of themselves, all right, people are us, the baby, how can you be okay with doing something like shut the daggone government down and stop snap thing and babies are gonna die? Somebody said, well, when do we start retaliating? And I know you're going to talk to that, but I think that we have to know the lay of the land and not sugarcoat this thing. They know exactly what they're doing. Russell Vogt has said some pretty heinous things about what's going on and why. They want a white nation. So we know that. They've always wanted a white nation. What we got to do is figure out, okay, this hurts, right? This pisses me off. This pisses me off. It makes me scared. It makes me anxious. My throat is tight all the time. I don't want to eat. I can't sleep. But I'll be doggone if I'm going to let them steal my joy. And that's a form of retaliation. That's a nonviolent, because, I have young people talk to me. They say, Reverend Swinton, to get me a gun. Well, you can get a gun, but that's not going to solve it. This is a spiritual battle. And it takes something bigger than what we can even see because it's powers and principalities. And so, you got me started. It's your fault. You did this, but it's just like, what do we do? Because we have to know how to identify what we're feeling, and then within that knowledge, figure out the way to effectively retaliate so that we can fall back into the resilience that we have always had as Black people.
Yeah. So first of all, just knowing what's happening in your body, right? Many of us, our faith has disembodied us, right? So we have all of these pains and things in our bodies, but we've been told to sort of disconnect from the body. So part of this is in our faith spaces, what does it mean to come back to our bodies? Right. I need to know, because that's when I start to feel like, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling some pain and I need to check on this, right? I need to, this body is important. Some of us have been told that our body could, you don't worry about your body. No, I'm saying be concerned about your body. I'm saying be concerned about the fact that your shoulders won't go back down. They're stuck. They look like earrings. I'm saying be concerned about your heart rate being. So I'm saying be concerned, be aware, be concerned and aware of what's happening in your body. Pay attention. And this is for all of us. This is for me. This is what happens when you wake up in the morning. What ask your body, like, what am I feeling today? What am I feeling today? How does my body feel today? How is my breathing? When I get out of bed, how do my joints feel, right? Because I know each of us has different levels of mobility and disability. So this is going to look different for everybody. But I need to know this body. And for those of us who are in our spaces of faith, maybe we ought to spend a little bit of time, even in our preaching or teaching, asking people to sit with their body for a second, right? How does this sermon feel in your body? Does it feel life-giving in your body? Or is it telling you to cut off more parts of yourself in order to fit into this space, right? So one thing I'm gonna say is really, really paying attention to our bodies, right? Our emotions, what are you feeling? So body, I'm talking about like your physical body, right? But I'm saying, what am I feeling? And my emotions, do I have a safe space to feel this thing? And safe and brave space, right? So what does my circle look like? In 2023, the Surgeon General talked about us having an epidemic of isolation and loneliness, right? So a lot of us are navigating this alone. What does it mean to become part of community, right? Part of community. What does that look like? And then I'm gonna name a couple of practical things. Can we talk about what mutual aid looks like in times like these? Because if I know you got bread and I got lunch meat, now I don't eat lunch meat anymore, but if I got lunch meat and you got bread and somebody else got mustard, then our families got sandwiches tonight. And so what does it look like, right? Because here's the thing. If I know community can feed us, that also alleviates some of the stress that I'm carrying around us having enough to eat, right? So some of these things are, then it is, can I say, where are you in terms of where you worship. Now, I keep saying, I'm not talking about anybody's specific congregation. I'm not talking any specific pastor, but is your pastor naming the very real challenges that we are navigating in this world? Has this come up in the sermon? Is this a part of, are they cultivating conversation around the evil that you're navigating, right, and providing some hope, and not uninformed hope? I'm trying to, right, not this sort of uninformed hope that sort of fantastical, that magical thinking kind of hope, right? I'm saying, are they preaching in a way that reminds you that what we need is in the community, and that there are spaces that we can come together in order to support ourselves? Because if I know my family's going to eat, that does alleviate some of the stress that I'm carrying. If I know that, listen, my electric bill needs to be paid. Oh, Jamie, you got a job. You can, okay, I got your electric bill for the next 6 months. If I need us to know, what does it look like? Because I want to live and be well, but I also want the community to be well. And so the other piece is, it's not just noticing what's happening in me. It's not being afraid to look around and see what's happening with the folks that are around me as well. Because here's the thing, I can't be well alone. It's not possible. It's not possible. So if I'm going to be well, that means we're going to be well. Right. So navigating, and then eating. Can I talk about eating? So here's the trick. The trick is, I want you to be in a space where you have to work 3 jobs, so you're tired. So when you get home, the only thing you really have time to do is to grab something from McDonald's and feed your folks, right? I get that, right? That let's just grab the easiest thing, because I've been working 2 jobs, right? Easiest thing. And at the same time, that might not be the healthiest thing for our bodies, especially during times of stress and turmoil. So how do we start to work together? This is why I love Dr. Heber Brown and the Black Food Security Network, right? It's starting to, how do we figure out the foods we need, the herbs we need, right? Who are the herbalists in the community? Y'all know, we talked about the herbalists before. We talked about them before, but now we need the herbalists.
We need them, yeah.
Who are the planters in the community? Who are the folks who know how to grow things in the community? Who are the babysitters in the community, right? So for me, being well is not just sort of the food I take into my body. It's not just sort of moving the body in a way that I don't store the emotion so that I have this inflammation and pain. Right. It's also, what are we doing together to alleviate some of the pain that we have as community? Because they're trying to kill us. They're not going to stop. And we have to figure out, and here's the thing, I know we know it. It is memory and imagination meeting, right? It is, your great grandmother knew how to make something and do something. And the truth is, you listened enough to get part of it. You got part of it. So figuring out, let me start to do the things I heard them say. And in the midst of all of this, how do I hold on to hope? Because part of what gets the children and the children's children to keep doing their work is the fact that we can imagine a future together. Right. So Black folk, we got to be able to see a future. Right. We have to see a future if we're going to move through this.
Which is what we've always done as a people, even though the situations have been really very bad. We've always had that hope. It doesn't even make no sense, but we've had hope. When I talked to my sermon yesterday, I was talking about how I used to be irritated when I went to Trinity and non-melanated people would show up. We'd be having church. You know how they say church be church, and we would have church. It was so wonderful. And then I'd be leaving church, and the people would say, some of the non-melanated people would say, well, how can you have such joy?
Yeah.
Well, cause we have to fall into that. We have to find that, and we have to hold on to hope. But I think this whole building of community is so important. We have, too many of us have fallen into the American way of rugged individualism that'll kill you.
Yeah.
Rugged individualism will kill you. And there's also, because people keep asking, and that's why I'm so glad you're here, Dr. Jamie, because people say, what can we do? Because you got to start with yourself. You got to start with yourself. And we have to figure out ways that maybe we hadn't thought about before. And I always go back to the story of Norman Cousins. He was a white guy, but he was the editor-in-chief of Atlantic magazine, and he had some bad inflammation disease. It was going to kill him. He couldn't play the piano. He had been a concert pianist. He couldn't play. He was going to die. He was going to die. So he was in the hospital, and the Western medicine wanted to give him whatever the Western medicine thing was. But he had traveled all over the world, and he had learned some things about the body and how it responds to inflammation. So he said, no. I don't want what you got. I'm going to have to take massive doses of vitamins. I'm not telling you, I'm just saying what he did. And massive doses of laughter. And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about laughter. I'm talking about the kind of laughter that you have when you look at a Sinbad thing. That boy don't have not a bit of sense, not a bit of sense. But I tell you, there is something extremely healthy and helpful when you can laugh so hard that your sides hurt. Because I think when you're laughing like that, Jamie, you're the expert in this. I don't know nothing about this. But when you're laughing that hard, your muscles are contracting and you're pushing some of that stuff out that has been stored up in your muscles and keeping you in an inflamed state. So it might be churches have to, we're gonna pray. Sing, because Sunday morning is grief release. You get some of them songs. That's why church lasts 4 hours, because you get a song and it's just hitting all those spaces. So that's good. We have to do that. But that whole being able to think outside of the box. Somebody said, well, I don't want to do the breathing. Okay, that's cool. Well, do something else, but you have to not sit in it.
Right.
You can't sit in it.
Yeah, do something else. So maybe it's not breathing, right? I tell people it could be stretching, drink water, right? It's all of these things together, finding the thing that works for you. Because a friend of mine, she says, listen, I'm not going to close my eyes and do this meditation. I'm falling asleep. It doesn't work for me, right? So, okay, let's figure out the thing that works for you. And what works for her is sound bathing, right? So it is, I have my singing bowls over here. I have my ceramic ones down there. So it is just allowing the frequency, that sound, to also connect with body. We know that that's also healing. So some of us are going to have to do some sound healing. Some of us are going to have to dance, if that's the thing that moves our bodies and helps us move, because movement does help. I tell people this. 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, January 2023, I was burnt out. I hit burnout. All of my hair started falling out. I started having so much pain in my body. It was a lot of things happening, right? Because of accumulated stress over the years, plus the work I do, but just all of that stress, right? What I found out, I know that going to our doctors is not the most, not the easiest thing, because they don't believe our pain and all that. It took a long time. What I found out is that I have a thiamine and folate deficiency. I started experiencing neuropathy, like really just throughout my whole body. And they didn't listen until they did, right? So some of us, you talked about like vitamin D and sun and all, it is, what do I need to put into my body?
Absolutely.
Right? That will help me. But some of us, how do I move my body? And what brings me pleasure? And when I'm so serious about this, you all, when I say what brings me pleasure, what makes me laugh, as you said, what sort of the deep laughter, what can I tap into that will allow me a moment of joy? Can I start my day? Like some of this, we're going to have to start to plan out, right? I have to plan out. Stop watching Law and Order. Stop watching NCIS. Stop watching FBI, right? Shift. Watch Living Single. Watch The Golden Girls. Like I'm being real serious. Yeah. It is all of the things that happen throughout the day that I accumulate in my body. What am I feeding my body? Music, movies. What am I feeding my body? I see you, Tiffany. You say, I love Law and Order. But listen, we got to do it in doses, right? It is, I need to put in me what gives me new life, right? So I need to figure out, am I watching the shows that invite me to laugh? Am I listening to music that puts a little movement in my body?
Come on.
What are the things, right? So I hear you, absolutely. I make it a point to laugh every day. Every day I make it that I made this decision a few years ago. I find something to laugh at every day. Sometimes I'm laughing at me. but I make a point to laugh every day. And I know, y'all, I'm not trying to give us these little silly remedies and things like that.
No,
I'm being practical,
it
right? So the
works.
practical thing is I don't watch violence before I go to bed. I watch something that's going to make me laugh. When I wake up in the morning, I don't jump into violence or agitation or stress. I do things that make me feel like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready to do my day, right? I'm surrounded by people who look at me and say, something's wrong, right? So they're paying enough attention to me. I'm paying attention to me and them, and they're paying attention to them and me. So we're in community and we see I'm checking in on friends who I know have been impacted in ways that I have not. So I get to say, hey, I'm privileged in this way. Let me check the community. Is there a community need? Let me fill that need. These are ways that we make it through. And I may have to decolonize some of my thinking around whether or not I deserve to suffer, or whether or not I'm supposed to just, make it through without fighting against, right? Like, I need to be able to name this injustice, and I don't have to sit with it like, well, it'll be okay in the great by and by. I want well enough here. And so I might have to unlearn some of the ways that I've been taught to sort of sit with suffering and accept it. I might have to unlearn. And if I'm in a space, I'm telling you, my pastor is Dr. Leslie Callahan, St. Paul's Baptist Church here in North Philadelphia. If I'm in a space where they are not teaching and preaching what it means to be well and fight against death dealing systems, I don't want to be in that space. That's right. That's not healthy or helpful during times like these.
That's right.
Right? So I just want to, I saw a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we have to, and we do have, I have a real good question down here, but we also have to understand that everything we want, this world, this system is programmed to control us.
Yeah.
Even the cartoons, the violence, I used to love Wile E. Coyote, the Roadrunner. All that violence, we're taught violence. We are taught the European value system.
Yes.
Almost everything that we watch. That's why going someplace and laughing so hard that you cry, that's an act of resistance. It's an act of resistance. You're saying you ain't gonna take my spirit, you're not gonna take my joy, you're not gonna take my resolve, and you're not gonna get me in a place like they're trying to do when I'm so angry and I'm so wound up that you do something and I'm gonna snap. So because when I snap, they win. They win. And we have to be, determined that we're gonna win. We're gonna win this one way or the other. So that's why this taking care of ourselves and recognizing that we do have trauma and it's eating us alive. And we have to do something to handle it because ain't nobody going to come to rescue us. I am just, I'm going to give you this question here.
Okay.
Some of us are leading congregations, and that is a challenge. And let me say, amen, it really is. I am naming the exhaustion of that and the lack of capacity to nurture our families.
Yeah.
The trauma is taking everything, making it hard to focus and support our kids. What do you say to that?
Yeah. That, first of all, I see you and I understand, right? That you're not alone in this. That there are so many pastors who are exhausted, right? You're exhausted. So here's where, for me, partnerships come into play, right? Because somewhere in our teaching, this is again sort of dismantling and decolonizing. Somewhere in our teaching, we believed that the pastor was supposed to do all the things, right? At one time, maybe the pastor did, maybe, right? But we have to acknowledge that the pastor has whatever capacity they have, and then mental health professionals and ritualists, and there are these other people who have healing modalities that they might also bring into the community to support the nurture that the pastor is trying to cultivate, right? So it is how do we cultivate a space where the pastor does not have to carry the burden alone, right? This is one of the things that I get to do is sometimes pastors reach out and they say, my congregation is grieving. Can you do a 3-week or 6-week, program with them to help them move through the grief in healthy ways? Not that it's going to end it, but to help them move through in healthy ways. So for the pastors who feel like they have to do it alone, this is where partnerships come into play. This is where First Baptist and St. John AME and Matthew's United Methodist Church can come together and start to figure out, what is our goal here? Our goal is to ensure that all of the families are nurtured. So what do you all have there? What do you remember? They said, bring all of your things. Can we figure out ways to get communal in that sense again? And I know this is hard. I know this is really hard to step away when times are hard, right? To take a break. I know that's hard. I know we try to, I gotta stay because everything is happening. Well, it's not going to stop happening tomorrow. And we want you to be well. So sometimes there are some pastors who are at the point where they actually need to take a month off. And I know how I'm going to take a month off pay. I know we got to figure that out, right? But I'm saying some pastors need a minute off, and others need to step in and do the nurturing of the congregation and community. That's what we need in these moments too, so that you don't have to carry it alone. We don't want you to die.
Come on.
Trying to nurture. I need you to get what you need too. And that's the fallacy. That's the thing we need to unlearn, that I gotta die in this sense, right? I can also figure out ways for me to be well. If that means I need to take 3 weeks off and not be in contact with anybody from the church, then let's figure out who can step in and nurture while I get what I need so that I can be alive. I see another question or comment in the chat.
This is a big one. Let's see. It says Robert Simmons is saying, is this representative of your message to us? He says he wants to post it. He says to revise. Here's a quote. Senator Lindsey Graham recently said, this is what you already talked about, Dr.
Yeah.
I feel good about where we are going as a nation. See, that's a sick.
Oh yeah,
that's
he wants
sick.
to post it. Yeah,
that's sick. Yeah, you can put that on Facebook.
Yeah,
that's what you said.
Yeah, that's what these ain't my words. I saw the video one morning and I messed up. I woke up and I looked on Facebook, but I'm glad I did, and I'm glad the person posted it for me. I saw that and I was like, I'm not gonna say what I said, y'all, but just know me and the Lord had a real conversation. Because they are trying to kill us.
And you have to say that out loud, as distasteful as it is. You have to say it. And you might not have, you don't have to say that to your children, but you gotta know it so that you can understand how to lead your children through this morass of helplessness, hopelessness, anger, anxiety, all that kind of stuff. Because they're going through it too. The babies are going through it too. And they don't know what, listen, if we're going through all of our stuff, they're even worse because they don't know what to say. They don't know, they just know something is different. And if we're not talking about, we're not going to talk, we're just going to tell Jesus, okay, that's good. Let's pray together. That's always good. But the babies, when they get up off their knees, they want to know something else because they don't understand what's going on inside of them. And that is a form of trauma as well.
Yeah, and finding ways to communicate that the trouble, right? Finding ways to communicate the trouble in ways that the children can understand, but not in a way that instills more fear, right? So we got to find a way to have these conversations to say, it's a lot of people who are to help them understand what's happening, because they're in school with children who are being ripped apart from their families. So yes, having these conversations with our children is helpful. And I have a friend, I won't name her, but I got her son a subscription to y'all can say what y'all want, to the Disney Channel. This is before all the stuff went down. And I called her and I said, you better not cancel that subscription. I want him to be able to watch some of the things that he wants to watch that makes him laugh, right? You can have conversations about what's happening in the world, and all that to say, I also want to create space for children to be children as they're navigating this, right? So yes, I'm having conversations with children, particularly in my job. Folks come in and they might have children. We're having conversations, but I'm also very clear that I want to help them tap into joy that these oppressive systems can't snuff out. So I'm finding ways to engage. Yes, let's talk about what's happening in the world. Let's talk about what your classmates are feeling and what happened with the. Let's talk about those things. And what else can I help them do that they love? Because I want them to still have that sense of joy that just can't be snuffed out any old right kind of way. So that's the kind of thing that I have tried to work with. I'm just looking in the chat right now too.
I think that the whole thing Robert said, have we prepared our children for this moment? We have not. We have not. And that's just my opinion. But when the civil rights movement came and we got, the public transportation was desegregated and education was desegregated and we can go to the restaurants we wanted, we kind of thought we were part of this. We thought we were part of the fabric, and we thought, people worked hard and, got bitten up by the dogs and hit by the fire hoses, but they got the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. We thought, oh, we're good. We're never good, and we're not going to be good in this country because our seedbed is one of fascism. It has always been that. It's one of hatred and bigotry that was built into, it's like if you're trying to bake an orange carrot cake and you put oranges in there, it ain't gonna be no carrot cake.
Right. And you can't throw carrots on top at the end.
Throw carrots.
Right, which is what we try to do.
So every time I hear somebody say, this is not who we are, I said, you're not reading. You don't understand. This is exactly who we are. And so we have to we fell into it, and so they fell into it, right? They fell in, and we didn't talk about it because we've come through it. It's going to be all right. It was never okay. So now I think, Jamie, tell me if you agree. Now our babies, and they're a little bit older babies, but they're babies to me because I'm old. But when you look at them, you say, they're getting ready to go through what we thought we were done with. Yeah. And no, Robert, we did not prepare them. And so now we we have an obligation, which we should never, ever, ever shirk again. Should we get through this? Always have our own schools. Always have something like a freedom school. So we teach like the Jewish people teach their children their history. We should never, ever, ever not have our stuff because they don't consider us human. They don't consider us American. We ain't Christian. We're not patriot. We're nothing. We're still, what is it? Non-humans. We are, and we will always be that way. Okay. So then somebody's going to say, not all people. I'm not saying all people. I'm talking about the seedbed of this country. That's what it is. And if we don't take care of our babies, ain't nobody going to do it. What do you think?
Yeah. And so I think what's happening, people were already doing this, but I see a resurgence of this, right? This communal aspect of being in the US, particularly for Black folks, Black, brown, Indigenous folks, right? We are figuring out again what it means to grow our own food. We're figuring out again what it means to build little small communities, to have freedom schools. We're figuring out again. And I know that some communities were already, but just more large scale. It is the return to African centered living, where we look out who in the community how does the community be okay? What does Ubuntu look like? That is what we are returning to. And yes, as you said, the return can't be forgotten, right? So in so many ways, and I don't think it will be, I'm just being honest. I am well right now. The world, and I know the world is on fire, and I know that over 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs, and I know, and I'm just in my body, like I am taking care of myself in all the ways that I need to be here for me, but to be here in community, right? So I want to name that. And when I look around and see what's happening, I see the mutual aid. I see the small community starting to gather and plant. I see people trying to educate their children together. And I think that is where we are moving to, part by force, because what can we do under this system that wants to kill us? So I see us moving to that. And I don't think we're gonna let it go this time, right? Because I think integration was really seductive, right? Yeah. Because in so many ways, we were proving our worth, like we're worthy too. And I'm not proving my worth to whiteness, right? And I'm not trying to prove my humanity to an inhumane system. I am going to be who I am, where I am, why, like I am going to be. And I think the more we figure out as community that trying to prove our worth or trying to do just enough so that they look at us and say, "Oh, you're right," right there. There is no amount of pulling up, not having your pants sagging and not using profanity and wearing tie. There's no amount of that takes away from violence that's enacted upon us, right? There's no amount of showing up in ways that are respectable that will cause an inhumane system to treat you humanely. It just doesn't happen. And so if we recognize that inhumane systems will never recognize our humanity, right? So I got to know I'm human without this system.
That's right. That's right.
I got to know that. I got to know that within my community, what I need is here, right? Like really looking at I believe I'll be okay. If y'all take my house today and I don't have a job, I told my friends, I'm just going to spend time on couches until we figure out the next move. Like we need that kind of communal understanding that I won't let you go hungry. Like that is, and I think we have that, right? I do. But maybe on a larger scale, along with creating other systems. What agricultural systems are we creating, right? What monetary systems and ways of moving money are we creating? What are we doing in that space so that we don't have to lean on the folks that's trying to kill us?
That's right. Right. That's crazy to lean on them and think we're going to be okay. One of the questions, Barilla Wright, I said your name wrong, I'm sorry, but she asks, how did our ancestors explain to children the Jim and Jane laws and what can we learn from them? I don't know that they explained it so much, except there's this really weird reality, I think, Jamie, that I came to the realization of not long ago. When I was a kid, when my mom was going to give me a spanking, she would always say, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And I thought, you just lying. I didn't say it, but I'm just saying, you just lying. But she was saying it. She was saying something. She was saying that she knew, she's from Alabama, right? She'd seen some stuff. She didn't talk to us about it.
Yeah.
But she had seen some stuff. And she knew that there were certain things that we could not do. We better not do out there in that world, because their quote whipping would kill us. Her whipping hopefully would bring us into a place where we thought about stuff. And I think that in our preaching, our teaching, and the work that you do, always infusing it with the history, just always infusing it, so don't come up with like a history lesson because then we go forward, but just put it in there. I'm talking about so and so and so, and then put a little something in there about something that happened that makes people lean forward, including the children. Because they don't know that stuff. They don't know that stuff. And I think the sister who wrote this question, we learn that they said something. We don't know what they said. But one of the things that probably all of us can say is that mom and daddy and them said this hurts me more than it hurts you, and that's why. That's one of the maybe indirect ways of talking about Jim and Jane Crow. There's so much stuff we have in terms of community and the types of meetings we have. You can have a meeting for the Ursher board. That's good. But that ain't all there is. You know what I'm saying? There needs to be some community meetings where we talk about that trauma and what are we going to do to save ourselves. And I think that in doing that, and as we come up, because every time, and I think I've read a lot, I haven't read nearly enough because every day it comes up with something else that I didn't know. There's so much there, and I think we can be fascinated by it, and it's another way to relieve the trauma. Let me do this, Jamie. We're almost we ended about 8:15, but I want you to please give people some action steps. We've named some of them, but if you could give people some action steps, and people who are watching, if you have some action steps you want to suggest, please put them in the chat as well. Can you do that, please?
Yeah. So we started this conversation with naming what we're experiencing as normal, right? So the first action is naming where you are and what you're going through, because it's just important, not pretending that what you're navigating doesn't exist, right? That just because we don't name it doesn't mean we aren't feeling it. So really being able to be honest with ourselves and one another about where we are. So that's one of the first things we need to do. Second thing is I want us to explore our communities. Now, I'm not saying the all of the 100 people on your block or any. I'm saying what about the 5 or 6 people that are part of your circle, right? I want us to figure out what resources do we have, right? Because part of this is how do we ensure that we have all of what we need as we're navigating this, right? Because it's not going to end tomorrow. But if between the 4 of us, if me and my neighbor can figure out what it means to support each other in a way as we go through this, that's part of this. Another thing I want to say is, and I know some of y'all are going to say, really breathe, but yes, I am saying that we hold our breath. I am telling you to pause throughout your day and breathe. Now, can I tell y'all how I did this initially? Initially, I set an alarm that would say, for me, it was stand up and breathe because I would sit at my desk all day. So my alarm would ring and it would be the stand up and breathe alarm. I know y'all like, really? But I had to do it. And when I stood up to breathe, I would notice that, oh, my shoulders were already up here, right? And so I would breathe long enough for my body, for my shoulders to relax a bit. They had to relax a bit. So that was another thing. I'm telling us that many of us are that close to being dehydrated if we're not already dehydrated. So I'm like, y'all are like, what is this? I'm saying drink water, right? Like, so, and these are some of the simple things, right? But can I tell y'all those simple things work over time? Like over time, breathing and drinking water will be helpful to you, right? So that's another thing. I make an intention to find something to laugh at every day. Every single day. And usually, I done told y'all my business. I watch Living Single and I watch The Golden Girls, right? That's important. I see somebody said, absolutely. If you have the capacity to go outdoors, what does it look like to breathe in fresh air? And I know, listen, I know the pollution in our communities. I understand that. What does it look like to be near a tree, to be in the grass, to be near flower? So being out in nature can absolutely be helpful for us. Oh, yeah. I'm saying this, watch what we put into our bodies, because the inflammation and the pain and all of that we're already experiencing as a result of the stress that we're going through, right? The trauma that we're navigating is being exacerbated by what we put into our bodies. So I'm already dealing with inflammation, and now I'm eating food that also causes inflammation, right? So I'm saying, as much as possible, begin to look at what am I putting into my body. Some of you are naming prayer and things like this. I also take a go-go break. I lived in DC from 1994 to 2017. I love go-go music. So it's not always go-go, but I take a little dance break throughout the day, right? Like I play some music and I dance. And so I'm saying the things that we need to do are going to look different for all of us, but some of us need to think about the things that are across the board: the drinking water, the finding things to laugh at, the breathing, the getting fresh air. Somebody talked about sewing. What do you like art? I write poetry. Do you paint? Do you draw? Do you sing? The thing that makes you feel most alive, I want you to do that, right? So again, I see starting sewing circles, all of those things. And can I tell you, it is also a slap in their faces when you walk outside and you decide to take a walk when the world is on fire. Right? When you decide I'm going to solve something when the world is on fire, like that is an act of resistance. When you take a nap, right? Because the world is on fire, and we might think I got to stay up and do all these things. I need to go take a nap, right? Go lay down, right? These things, these are acts of resistance. When you decide to laugh, it's an act of resistance. When you decide to take a nap, all of those things are ways, right? And then for those of us who have access, get to a therapist, right? Your individual support, get to a therapist, but also find places that have groups that we like. well, December is next month, right? So during the year, I typically do a once a month grief session, and this one is free. Like some things I do cost. That one is free. I do it once a month. Find the places that are holding space, that don't make you sit in the shame of not having what you need, that let you be your whole self in the space, that let you bring your story and don't tell you that it's too dirty or too painful for them to hold, right? Find those spaces. All right. Not that you're going to just give everybody your story, but that you know your story can be held with tenderness and integrity. So finding spaces like that can be helpful. For those of you who are in churches, right, and you have an opportunity to make some decisions, what about you holding space for people on a monthly basis where folks get to come in and just be present and talk about, you can strategize, you can do some breathing work together, you can play music, it doesn't have to be serious. You can gather a group of people and play music in the room and folks can dance. I know that sounds like what? Yes, you can. You can gather people together and play music in a room and dance. So figuring out how to do those things, those are just some of the things. But the breathing can help you move your body out of that fight flight mode and help you begin to find a place of safety within your own body. So starting to touch that body yourself is helpful.
And it is remarkable, that breathing thing. I remember when I was pregnant, I went to the Lamaze classes and all. They said, do that breathing. Boy, those pains started. I said, you done lost your mind. I'm not going to do no breathing. But it was really, it really did work. There's something very powerful about it. And even though I still, to be honest, and I go to these retreats and let's go do the breathing. I say, here we go. But then I remember, how powerful that was during me going through labor. One of the other things, Jamie, this is very important, because remember that everything we see and watch, it's programmed. They know what they're doing in terms of keeping things just as they are. Stop scrolling on social media, please. Just stop it.
Yeah.
That's like feeding yourself poison by the tablespoon, every single one. If you can't, I scroll periodically, and I don't go on Twitter. I cut that crap out a long time ago. But you know what I like to look for is like pets. They have these wonderful things that these pets.
Yes.
I look for stuff that make me smile, that make me, that
I look at babies.
Yeah.
I look at the laughing babies.
You're not going to take my joy. And that determination, that statement right there, you are not going to take my joy. You are not going to do it. It's an act of resistance. And so I read someplace where this woman, author Nicole Himmer, said that the emotions most associated with racism is not hatred, but pleasure. She says, for some white people, white supremacy is cozy, affirming, romantic, and heroic. Therefore, okay, I know what I'm fighting now. You know what I'm saying? They like to see us crumble and disintegrate. They want to do all this crazy stuff that this administration is doing. They want to spark something because those people want a war somewhere. And if it's, in this country, in one of the blue states, the Democrat states, they're going to do that. So we have to say, oh, no, bro, that ain't happening. We have the resolve, but we have to make room in our spirits, I think, to let the resolve do its work, and it has a lot of power. So, I'm just, I'm gonna take your classes or something, because I think that we can't do enough to make sure we're healthy and whole. This is about being healthy. We are being healthy, and we're fighting a disease that is terminal. That's what we're doing, and we don't want the germs of that disease to get in us and permanently infect us. So as long as we got the capacity to make some decisions and make some changes, then we're resisting, and we're keeping ourselves safe. And I think that's how we have to think about it. I don't.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say is, so I'm thinking about memory and imagination, and I've been doing y'all know I'm back in school. I love learning, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. But memory and imagination, right? Use the same sort of neural networks in our brain, right? So that means if I can remember the work, the coming through, the getting over that my ancestors did, that might also feed my imagination for what it looks like for me to come through and to get over, right? That's one of the reasons why they try to take all of the history out of the school.
That's right.
Because if you have connection to that memory,
Right.
history, then that also helps you imagine a better future. And so as you talked about teaching, that's another thing that we need to make sure that we're doing is learning and teaching about what folks have done in ways that are honest and not distorted, so that our memory and our imagination can be fed in a way that helps us now imagine more and new worlds and better futures. So that's another thing that I would say. But yeah, get you some people. I got good people that love me and that say, child, you need to rest because you've been a little bit angry today. Okay, I got some people that do that for me. And I go talk to my therapist. I got my people. And I believe in laughter and pleasure. So I'm making sure that I do those things regularly. And don't be afraid to put yourself first in that. That's another thing we got to fight is I got to put everybody else first. You don't. Put yourself first on that list. Drink your water. Then you can tell other people
that stuff they taught us, and they don't be doing it. You know what I'm saying? They taught us put everybody, but they don't do. They
at all. Drink your, and they did that. That's intentional. You put everybody first, but I'm gonna put myself first. No, drink your water. Right? Do that too. And somebody plugged that they have a book coming out at the end of the year. My book will be out next year, and then the following. I got 2 books coming out, one next year and one the year after. And so, yes, I love the writing. Someone wrote in the chat.
And that's therapeutic. It's cathartic to write. So we have ways to address the trauma inside of us, which is just this massive inflammation, which causes all kinds of problems. We want to get rid of the inflammation, and the things that Dr. Jamie has suggested are really, really important, and they work. I was sharing yesterday that, sing, you can sing. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. I used to direct the choir at my church, but no matter how tired I was, oh, Jesus, I went into the rehearsal and got them to singing. I was better. I didn't even remember what I was feeling bad about. And that's what we want to do. So I said, sing out loud. Even if you can't sing, it don't matter. You're not trying to go to Carnegie Hall. You're just trying to get your spirit right. So sing your song. If there's a Luther song or a Patty song or whatever, sing your song and do it in such a way that it makes your body move, because those are all acts of resistance. And that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to say to them that even though you're trying to kill us, we're not going to let you. How about that? We're not going to let you. We have come too far. Oh my gosh. Jamie, I could talk to you forever. You are wonderful to talk to. Do you have any closing statements? Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, last thing. I love us, right? And so I'm determined to, one, keep learning new ways to support me and us. But also, I want to challenge us. Some of us are going to have to unlearn stuff we've been taught, particularly in our faith spaces, and maybe even with our families, if we're going to be well. And so that discomfort that comes when you have new information and you might have to start doing things a little bit differently, right? That discomfort is normal and it's healthy, because it's your mind, it's your being saying, wait a minute, I'm gonna bless what I knew. Thank you for that. But I'm going to find new ways of being that are more healthy. And some of us, we've been wrestling with that for a long time, because we feel like if we do what is more healthy for us, what brings us joy, what allows us to address our trauma, then we might have to let go of some people and some places. I'm going to encourage you in this season that might be the right thing to do. I want you to be well. My business is called Thoughtful Transitions. That's the business, but the nonprofit is the Ratchet Grief Project. And so the podcast will start at the end of the month, if not the first week of December. And we're going to be having conversations around navigating grief and trauma in ways that we're not trying to fit into respectability politics as we talk about these things. So please join us for those conversations. And however I can, right? Now, listen, I'm not making myself available for the world, but I'm saying when I have workshops, come to the workshop. If you can't pay, come to the free ones, right? Like, just find the spaces that will continue to pour into you and hold you, because I love you and I love us and I want us to be well.
Absolutely. I'm gonna get our if Reverend Damien is here, I'm gonna get him to come on board. I just want to leave you with a last thought. At the Proctor organization, we do something, we study and teach the theology of sufficiency. And the reason I'm saying that is because God has given us every single thing
Everything we need.
everything we need to fight what's going on. We are not deficient at
Mhm.
all. And I think the feelings of hopelessness and anxiety, that come because we think we don't have enough, we've got it.
Yeah.
God took care of the Israelites 40 years in the wilderness. 40 years in the wilderness. He did that. God did that. And God has always taken care of us. We have it. We just have to claim it. We have to be still so that we can find it, feel it, and touch it. And then we have to claim it and use it. And we'll be talking with you more about that. But Dr. Jamie, thank you so much. I'm
Thank
gonna
you for
call you
having
my
me.
little sister or something because you just
I appreciate it. I love you. Thank you.
you are a powerhouse, and I think that you're helping a whole lot of people. My hope and my prayer is that for all of you who are listening to this broadcast, that it's helping you, and we can have more conversations about it. We don't have to stop at this one just because. I mean, the last time we had one, when we ended, I felt like we should go on the next day because there was so much more that needed to be said and learned. But we are here for you. That's what we do. And people like Dr. Jamie help us do what we are doing. So, Dr. Jamie, I'm going to give you a virtual hug. I'll give you a virtual hug. Thank you so much. And for all of you who are with us, thank you very much. Dr. Reverend Damien, are you here? Are you with us? He's not here with us. There he is.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. My signal has been acting crazy.
Okay.
But thank you so much, Dr. Jamie. Thank you for blessing us again. We were, as Reverend Sue was saying, the critical conversations that we had in December of last year. We were saying that we really needed to do a part two. So you've helped kind of bring that even back around, but such an important and critical conversation. And thank you for your authenticity and transparency and intentionality in helping many of us just recalibrate, but also giving us some different practices just to consider as we navigate these times. But you are a gift and a blessing, and we greatly appreciate you giving your time and energy to us tonight.
Thank you, thank you. So all of you who have not yet done it, please register for the Assembly Do It Proctor Conference, which is happening in February. I know it's in Chicago. People are saying, oh, I'm not going, it's going to be cold. Well, we're not going to have the conference outside. We'll be in a hotel, so it'll be okay. If you want to go outside in the cold, you can go head on, but we're going to be inside. Register now. The current pricing is going to be ending in a few days. So register now. The prices are better now. And tell people that you know that they can come. Somebody called me yesterday. She said, well, I'm not a minister or anything, but can I come? I said, you sure can. Anybody can come. Anybody can come because you know what? What's happening is happening to all of us. And whatever you can have a profession or have no profession, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the conversations that we're and the workshops that we're having in the conference are designed to help us get through this stuff. We're going to get through this. And so we want you to come and register now. If you have any questions, you can call us at our office. All that information is on our website. But the 2026 Clergy and Lay Leadership Conference is designed to give us the strength that we need because we ain't fooling with these people. Amen. We are not fooling with them. So again, I want to tell everybody thank you. I want to thank the team. I want to thank Julie and Larita and Reverend Marcus, and Margot and everybody, Pat, that we have a team. We do this stuff as a team. Reverend Damien is talking about what leadership is. Not leadership is not a person, but leadership is an organization. It's a team, leadership, and it makes a big difference. It's like having a neighborhood, right? You can live isolated and need some sugar, or you can live in a neighborhood, need some sugar, and you got some sugar from somewhere. So that's what we're trying to do. So to the team, God bless you. Thank you. I love you, and I love all of you for tuning in. We will have another conversation on the third week of December. I don't know what the subject will be yet, but we will be here. And I just want us to leave with the understanding that we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this because our God is greater than this foolish evil that they're trying to push over on us. We've been through it before. We can get through it again. God bless. Have a good evening. Take good care.